Let me tell you something about life, my friends. The human soul doesn't move because it knows how it moves, because it knows why. Before we ever build a life worth living, we must build a reason worth fighting for. See, answers are everywhere, but they stay hidden from those without a reason to search. You don't get the map until you declare the mission. You don't get the fire until something inside you says, I'm done living this way. So tonight, we're not chasing answers. We're going to find the reasons that make you unstoppable. You know, people ask me all the time, how do I change my life? And I tell them, you don't change your life by changing your schedule or your location or even your income. You change your life the moment you decide your reasons are stronger than your habits, your fears, or your comfort. Change doesn't begin with a strategy. It begins with resolve. And resolve comes from reasons. Let me take you back. I was 25 years old, broke, behind on my promises, and full of excuses. Until one day, a little girl knocked on my door selling Girl Scout cookies. Just $2, and I didn't have it. I lied to her. I told her I already had plenty of cookies. And when I closed that door, I leaned against it and I said, I'm never going to live like this again. That moment became one of the first real reasons for me to change. Not the money, not the success, the shame, the pain, that embarrassment. That's when my reason started to become unshakable. And from that moment, everything else began to move. You see, the winds of life blow on all of us. The difference in where we end up isn't the wind, it's the set of the sail. And you don't adjust the sail until you have a reason to reach the shore. Epictetus once said, asterisk, first say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do. Asterisk. But people skip the first part. They jump to the doing without ever settling the being. And being is rooted in reasons. I've watched people go from nothing to wealth, not because someone handed them a blueprint, but because something inside them finally screamed, I've had enough. That cry becomes the engine of everything else. Once your reason is solid, the methods find their way to you. Life starts to open its doors, not because you knocked harder, but because you finally had something worth walking through for. I used to think that if you were smart enough, talented enough, educated enough, the money would just find its way to you. But I learned the hard way. Intelligence alone won't make you rich. What moves the needle is not how much you know, but how much you're driven. Purpose is the engine. Purpose is the fire. It's what gets you out of bed before the sun and keeps you working long after others have quit. The world is full of educated failures, sharp minds with no mission, clever thinkers with no drive. And if the purpose is weak, all the brilliance in the world won't save you from settling for average. I remember when my mentor looked at me and said, you've got the brains, you've got the ability. What you don't have is a reason. That stung a little because he was right. I was sitting on potential, but no direction. I knew a little about everything, but I didn't have a why. That pulled me forward. Once I got that straight, once I started to ask, why do I want to be wealthy? Why do I want freedom? That's when the soil cracked and things began to grow. The great Seneca said, asterisk, to the person who does not know to which port he is sailing, no wind is favorable. Asterisk. And I believe that. You can have all the intelligence, all the connections, all the opportunity, but if you haven't decided on a purpose, life will just toss you around like driftwood. You'll be clever, but broke. Educated, but empty. Gifted, but still working a job you hate. I've met folks with average talent but a mighty reason, and I've watched them out-earn, outwork, and outlast the so-called geniuses. Why? Because they had something to aim for. They had something worth sacrificing for. Intelligence is a tool, but purpose is the hand that swings it. When your life is aimed at something bigger than you, money doesn't just become possible, it becomes inevitable. You ever notice how life doesn't give up its secrets to the casual passerby? It hides the answers. It tucks them behind effort, behind pain, behind persistence. And here's the truth. Most people don't want to hear life withholds its answers from the unmotivated. It doesn't reward the lukewarm. It doesn't yield its treasures to those who only kind of want them. You've got to show life you mean business before it starts opening its doors. When I was young, I thought the answers were supposed to come first. I thought if I just asked enough people or read enough books, somehow the way forward would become obvious. But every mentor, every success story I came across told me the same thing. The answers only appear once you've got a reason to keep digging. And digging hurts. It takes work. You don't get to the gold by tapping gently on the surface. You dig because something in you says, there's something worth finding beneath all this dirt. Aristotle once said, asterisk. All men by nature desire to know, asterisk. But not all men are willing to pay the price for that knowing. And that price is motivation, the inner fire, the deep need to grow, to rise, to be more than you were yesterday. Without that, life keeps its best truths out of reach. I've seen people sit still for years waiting for clarity, waiting for the right answer before they move. But let me tell you something. You don't wait for clarity. You earn it. You earn it by taking steps. You earn it by committing before you're comfortable. When I finally got serious, when my reasons got real, it was like the fog started to lift. The opportunities didn't magically appear. I just started seeing them because I was finally looking with purpose. If you're waiting for life to hand you the manual before you move, you'll be waiting forever. But if you light a fire inside, the answers will begin to whisper and then shout. Because life respects movement. Life responds to hunger. There comes a moment in every life, a quiet, private moment, when you look around and say, this just isn't it. That moment doesn't come when things are comfortable. It doesn't come when you're slightly inconvenienced. It comes when your soul says, enough. That's the spark. The journey doesn't truly begin until you're tired, not tired in the body, but tired in the spirit. Tired of excuses. Tired of repeating the same year 10 times and calling it growth. Tired of living below what you know you're capable of. I remember standing in my tiny apartment at 2-5, broke, embarrassed, and tired. I wasn't tired from working too hard. I was tired from doing too little that mattered. Tired of telling lies to cover my tracks. Tired of pretending it was all fine. And it was in that moment, with no applause, no lightning bolt, no grand revelation, that I decided to change everything, because the pain of staying the same had finally become greater than the fear of changing. You see, human beings are powerful when we hurt deep enough. The poet Dante wrote, asterisk, the path to paradise begins in hell. Asterisk. And I believe it. Sometimes you have to walk through the ashes of your own habits, your own failures, to find the fire that'll push you forward. Comfort is the enemy of greatness. It lulls you into accepting crumbs when you were meant to own the table. Now, maybe you haven't had your moment yet, or maybe you've been trying to ignore it. But here's the truth. You won't build a new life until the old one becomes unacceptable. Until you say, I've had it. This is no longer who I'm going to be. Change doesn't start with a new plan, it starts with a new level of honesty. When you get tired of where you are, you'll stop asking for directions and start taking the first step. And that step changes everything. I've learned over the years that people don't push themselves for vague goals or abstract ideas. They push when something inside gets personal, deep, close to the heart. That's where excellence is born, not from competition, not from obligation, but from personal reasons. When the reason is personal, the effort becomes extraordinary. I've met people who didn't care much about achievement until their name was on the line, until their children were watching, until they looked in the mirror and saw someone they no longer respected. That's when the tide changes. When the reason becomes your own, you won't need alarms or pep talks. You'll wake yourself up. You'll push yourself past the point where others stop. Why? Because now it matters. I remember wanting to prove something not to the world, but to myself, that I wasn't a quitter, that I could rebuild my finances, that I could become a man of value, not just opinion. And let me tell you, nothing fuels your growth like the quiet determination to show you what you're really made of. It's personal. And when it's personal, it's powerful. The Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius once wrote, asterisk, waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one, asterisk. And that struck me, because excellence isn't something we admire from a distance. It's something we decide to embody every day for reasons that no one else has to understand. I've watched people do the impossible simply because they wanted to make their father proud, or send their mother on one final vacation, or prove to themselves that their past doesn't define them. That's not ego, that's soul. That's fire. That's what separates those who dabble from those who dominate. If your reasons are personal, your path becomes non-negotiable. And that's when life starts to move out of your way. Sometimes the reason we don't move forward isn't because we lack ambition. It's because we're alone in it. Now, let me tell you, when you find the right who in your life, you'll almost always find your why. The human heart can do extraordinary things when it beats for someone else. We're not just built for goals, we're built for connection. And when that connection runs deep enough, it'll pull greatness out of you that you didn't know was in there. I've seen people drift aimlessly for years, never really stepping up, never really reaching. And then someone enters their life, a child, a spouse, a mentor, a friend, and suddenly they light up. They become fierce, focused, determined. Why? Because now the mission isn't just about them. It's about us, asterisk. It's about them, asterisk. That shift from self to others is where real motivation begins. I remember meeting a man once who told me, I want to take my family around the world, and I need $250,000 a year to do it. He said it with so much certainty. I believed him before he even started. And sure enough, he made it happen. Not because he was smarter than everyone else, but because he had someone he cared enough about to keep going when most would quit. So now, you've heard it. Not the answers, but the reasons. Because that's where everything begins. If you walk away from this with one truth, let it be this: your life changes the moment your reasons become bigger than your excuses. Not tomorrow, not next month, the moment you decide you're done living below your potential. No one else can give you that. No book, no mentor, no strategy can replace a reason that sets your soul on fire. And once you find it, once it's yours, life starts to cooperate. The answers start showing up not because they weren't there before, but because now, asterisk, you're ready to see them. So ask yourself tonight, in the quiet moments, what do I really want? And more importantly, why do I want it? And if the answer makes you sit up straighter, if it makes your heart beat a little faster, then start. Start right there. Not because it's easy, but because it finally matters. Now go out there and don't just look for answers. Build the kind of reasons that make quitting impossible. Because once your reason is strong enough, the rest of your life won't dare stay the same.